The silver watch began ticking 9 seconds before the royal carriage moved. Arabella Hart-well heard it beneath the music, beneath the polite murmur of titled guests, beneath the sharp ringing in her own ears as she opened her eyes on the velvet settee of a retiring room at Ravenscourt terminus. Tick, tick, tick. The sound should have been impossible. The watch had belonged to her mother and had not worked in 7 years. Its hands had remained fixed at 12:17 through repairs, mourning, household moves, and every attempt to force time forward. Yet now the second hand trembled beneath the glass. Arabella stared at it, unable to breathe. Tick. The room around her came into focus in fragments. A carved screen, a silver water jug, a maid kneeling beside her with smelling salts. Beyond the closed door, a military band played beneath the iron and glass roof of the terminus, where half the court had gathered to admire the newest royal railway carriage. "Miss Hart-well," the maid whispered. "Can you hear me?" Arabella could hear too much. She could hear the watch. She could hear the applause beginning outside. She could hear the story she had once read opening around her like a trap. She knew this room. She knew the dress she wore, pale blue silk, chosen to make its wearer look decorative and unthreatening. She knew the name the maid had spoken. Arabella Hart-well, only daughter of the Prime Minister, dismissed by London as beautiful, idle, and too indolent to understand a dinner invitation, much less a matter of state. In the novel, she had been useful only because no one watched her closely. Men had altered royal orders in rooms she entered and left. Servants had carried sealed papers through her father's house when the royal train was later diverted and the heir to the throne forced to sign a concession. The evidence had pointed toward Arabella. She had been condemned as the lazy daughter who had finally proved treacherous. The man who signed the order for her arrest had been His Royal Highness, Prince Adrian Ravenscourt. Tick. The second hand moved again. Arabella closed her fingers around the watch. This was not the day of the final betrayal. It was the first accident. The demonstration carriage would move 9 minutes before its announced time. A child porter would be standing beside the service rail. Prince Adrian would be positioned at the observation platform. In the book, the coupling failed. The carriage struck the display barrier, and 3 people were injured. The incident became the first proof that someone was testing Royal Railway security. Arabella had read those pages from the safety of another life. Now the applause outside rose, and the watch gave its tick. Then it stopped. "What time is it?" Arabella asked. The maid glanced at the mantel clock. 31 minutes past 2, miss. The demonstration was scheduled for 2:40. Arabella swung her feet to the floor. "Help me stand. You fainted only moments ago." "Then I have wasted enough of them." The maid tried to steady her, but Arabella was already moving. Her reticule had fallen beside the settee. When she snatched it up, a blue-sealed folio slid from beneath the chair. She froze. The royal crest of House Ravenscourt had been pressed into the wax. No servant would casually leave such a document in a lady's retiring room. She broke the outer fold just enough to see the first page. The official itinerary stated, "Demonstration, carriage release, 2:40. Beneath it, in blue ink, someone had written, 2:31. The corrected time was the present minute. The band stopped. A bell rang outside. Arabella shoved the folio into her reticule and ran. "Miss Hart-well," the maid called. Arabella pushed through the door into the private concourse. Ravenscourt terminus stretched ahead beneath a vast roof of iron ribs and smoked glass, its clock faces, banners, and polished rails. built to glorify the alternate Victorian kingdom ruled by House Ravenscourt. Ministers stood beneath striped awnings. Railway directors clustered near the demonstration platform. Ladies raised parasols despite the roof, more concerned with posture than sunlight. At the far end, a black lacquered carriage gleamed on a shallow incline. Prince Adrian stood near the brass control stand with Lord Gideon Blackmere at his shoulder. A boy in porter's blue carried a wooden case across the service rail. No one looked alarmed. That was the worst part. The carriage had already begun to move. At first it rolled so slowly that the crowd mistook it for part of the exhibition. Then its wheels gathered speed. The child porter looked up. The case slipped from his hands. Arabella saw the brake lever beside the signal post, 20 yards away. She also saw the station bell rope hanging closer. If she ran only for the brake, the boy might still remain frozen in the carriage's path. "Ring the platform alarm," she shouted. Heads turned toward her, puzzled rather than obedient. Arabella seized the bell rope and pulled with both hands. The alarm crashed through the terminus. The child flinched. "Move!" she cried. This time he obeyed. He stumbled backward from the rail as a porter dragged him toward the platform edge. The carriage continued rolling. Arabella dropped the rope and ran for the brake. Silk caught around her ankles. Someone shouted her name. She reached the lever, gripped the cold iron, and threw her weight against it. Nothing happened. The handle had been locked half an inch above release. She pulled again. Metal shrieked beneath her hands. The carriage was less than 30 feet away. "Let go," a man ordered behind her. Arabella did not. "It hasn't engaged. You'll break your wrist. Then stop it." A gloved hand closed around hers, not dragging her away but changing the angle of her grip. Prince Adrian's shoulder came beside hers. Together they forced the lever down. The mechanism caught with a brutal jolt. Arabella's feet slipped. Adrian caught her at the waist and turned, shielding her as the carriage wheels ground against the rails. The sound swallowed every voice beneath the roof. The carriage slowed. 10 feet. 6. 3. It stopped a few feet short of the Royal Observation Stand. For one breath, the entire terminus remained silent. Adrian's hand was still around Arabella's wrist. His grip was firm, careful, and very warm through her glove. She looked up. He was younger than the severe portraits in the novel had suggested, though his face carried the restraint of a man taught never to show surprise before witnesses. His dark gaze moved from her to the stopped carriage, then to the boy being held by a porter. Only after confirming the child was safe did he release her. "Are you hurt?" he asked. No one had asked Arabella that in the book. No, her voice came out unsteadily. The boy, unharmed. Lord Gideon Blackmere approached with 2 railway officers. He was elegant, silver at the temples, and composed enough to seem useful in any crisis. "Your Royal Highness." The carriage was not due to move for another 9 minutes. Arabella felt the watch against her palm inside her glove. Adrian looked at her. "You appeared to know otherwise." Before she could answer, one of the officers opened the inspection case beside the rail. "Sir," he said, paling, "the coupling key is missing." Gideon's gaze settled upon Arabella's reticule. Miss Hart-well entered from the retiring corridor nearest the equipment chamber. The accusation was not spoken. It did not need to be. Arabella pulled out the blue-sealed folio and held it toward Adrian. "This was under the chair where I woke." Gideon reached for it. Adrian took it first. He read the printed time, then the handwritten correction. 2:31, he said, exactly when the carriage moved. "I did not write it. I did not say you had." His eyes lowered to the silver watch protruding from her closed hand. "What is that?" Arabella opened her fingers. The watch had stopped again at 12:17. "It belonged to my mother." "And it told you to run?" "It started ticking." Gideon's expression remained courteous, which made his disbelief more dangerous. "A broken watch warned you of a Royal Railway failure." Arabella looked at Adrian rather than the man beside him. She could not tell them she remembered this disaster from a novel. She could not tell the future heir that she had once read the scene of his captivity and her own execution. She could only offer the truth that sounded least believable. "No one warned me," she said. "That is why you should not trust the schedule." Adrian glanced at the altered folio, the missing key, and the carriage resting a few feet from disaster. Then he looked back at the silent watch in her palm. "Then what?" he asked quietly. "Should I trust?" The answer did not come before the doors of the private station chamber closed behind them. Arabella sat near the fire with Lady Beatrice Montclair beside her, the silver watch resting in her lap and the blue-sealed folio on the table before Prince Adrian. Lord Alistair Hart-well stood near the window, pale with irritation rather than relief. Lord Gideon Blackmere remained close to the mantel, elegant and composed, while Sir Hugh Carrow, director of the railway company, examined the missing space in the inspection case as though staring harder might restore the vanished coupling key. No one had asked Arabella to leave. That was not the same as being welcome. Adrian unfolded the itinerary folio and turned it toward the lamp. "The printed release time is 2:40, he said. "The correction reads 2:31. Miss Hart-well says she found the document beneath a chair in the retiring room." Gideon inclined his head. "A retiring room nearest the equipment corridor. Also a retiring room used by 30 ladies this afternoon," Lady Beatrice said. "Convenient rooms are rarely empty, merely because suspicion requires it." Gideon's smile did not alter. "I accuse no one, Lady Beatrice. No, you arrange your questions so that everyone else may do it for you." Arabella looked down before anyone could see how precisely the remark struck. Gideon did not need to say she had planted the folio. Her reputation supplied the accusation. Arabella Hart-well was thought too idle to manage treason competently, but society had always been willing to revise its opinion of a woman when guilt made her more interesting. Adrian lifted the page. Who had access to this paper stock? Sir Hugh cleared his throat. The Royal Household Office, the Prime Minister's transport clerk, and the directors responsible for the exhibition. "Lord Blackmere?" Adrian asked. "My office prepared the guest sequence, not the mechanical orders." Gideon turned toward Arabella with courteous concern. "Miss Hart-well, perhaps you might help us understand how the folio came beneath your chair. If I understood that, we would have one less question." "You entered the room alone. My maid followed within moments." "Did anyone speak to you before you fainted?" "Several people." "Anyone attached to the railway?" "I do not remember." Gideon paused just long enough to make the answer sound evasive. "And the blue ink?" he asked. "What of it?" "Your travelling case is known for blue stationery." Alistair shifted near the window. Arabella turned toward him. He did not meet her eyes. Adrian noticed. "Bring Miss Hart-well's case," he said. A footman fetched it from the outer chamber. Arabella placed it on the table herself and opened the clasp. Inside lay cream writing paper, sealing wafers, a silver pencil, and a small glass bottle of blue ink. Gideon did not touch it. "A resemblance," he said mildly. "Not proof." Adrian removed the stopper and inspected the pen beside it. "This is a lady's travelling nib." Sir Hugh leaned closer. The correction on the itinerary was made with a steel office nib, broader pressure, different split. And her gloves? Adrian asked. Lady Beatrice took Arabella's hands before anyone else could. The pale kid leather was smudged with dust from the brake lever, but bore no blue stain. No ink, Lady Beatrice said, unless Lord Blackmere believes Miss Hart-well wrote through clean gloves and then arranged for the ink to leap away. Gideon gave the dowager a shallow bow. I believe only that every possibility must remain open. Then yours should as well, Arabella said. The room stilled. Gideon looked at her with more interest than before. Mine? Your office helped prepare the guest sequence. You knew which retiring room was nearest the equipment corridor. You knew who would be placed near the observation stand. You also knew my reputation would do half the work if anything suspicious appeared near me. Alistair's head snapped around. Arabella. I am answering his question. You are speaking recklessly in front of His Royal Highness. I pulled a brake in front of His Royal Highness. Speaking seems the lesser risk. Lady Beatrice's mouth twitched. Adrian did not smile, but his gaze remained on Arabella. Lord Hart-well, he said, did your office issue any correction to the carriage release time? Alistair straightened. Certainly not. The government cannot be connected to this irregularity. Arabella heard what he had not said. He had not said his daughter could not be connected. He had not asked whether her wrist hurt where the lever had jolted beneath her grip. He had not even looked at the silver watch that had belonged to his wife. Adrian's expression hardened slightly. I asked about your office, not the government. The distinction is unnecessary. Today, it appears essential. Sir Hugh opened the inspection register. The coupling key was signed out at 1:50. By whom? Adrian asked. The signature resembles Mr. Bellamy, our senior inspection clerk. Resembles? He is absent with fever. He has not entered the terminus today. Gideon folded his hands behind his back. Then the signature was forged, or copied by someone who had seen it often, Arabella said. Sir Hugh looked toward her. That would require access to the inspection register, or to any previous form he signed. Adrian nodded once. The point stands. Gideon turned toward the silver watch, and yet we remain with the same difficulty. Miss Hart-well knew the danger before the rest of us. I saw the carriage moving, Arabella said. Before it moved, Adrian replied. His voice was quiet, not accusing. That made evasion harder. Arabella closed her fingers around the watch. She remembered the novel too clearly. Adrian, standing in a courtroom years later, colder than winter light, refusing to believe the woman before him because every paper carried her name. She could not tell him that she knew this scene because she had once read it. She could not explain that the watch had started exactly 9 seconds before the first wheel turned. I heard the mechanism engage, she said. Gideon glanced toward Sir Hugh. Could it be heard from the retiring room? Not through 2 closed doors, Sir Hugh admitted. Then perhaps the watch spoke louder than iron, Gideon said. Lady Beatrice's eyes chilled. Mockery is not evidence either. Adrian reached for the watch, but stopped before touching it. May I? Arabella hesitated, then placed it in his palm. He examined the scratched silver case, the worn hinge, and the frozen hands. 12:17, he said. Has it always stopped there? For 7 years. Alistair finally looked at the watch. For one instant, fear crossed his face. It vanished too quickly for anyone but Arabella to be certain. Your mother was overly attached to that object, he said. It encouraged her nervous fancies. Arabella looked at him. What fancies? This is not the time. It appears to be exactly about time. Adrian's gaze shifted from father to daughter. Lord Hart-well, did Lady Miriam ever raise concerns about royal schedules or railway orders? Alistair's jaw tightened. My late wife was not involved in affairs of state. That was not my question. The room fell silent again. Gideon stepped in smoothly. We are allowing grief to distract from the immediate threat. The prince's safety requires clarity. It also requires patience, Adrian said. Miss Hart-well will not be accused by implication because a document was found near her and a broken watch behaved strangely. Alistair frowned. Your Royal Highness, surely she should be excluded from all further royal events until this is resolved. Arabella felt the old pattern close around her. Remove her, silence her, decide that absence proved safety. Adrian turned toward Alistair. Your daughter prevented an accident and saved a child. She also possessed the altered itinerary. Possessed is not the same as created. Public perception will not make that distinction. Then public perception will have to be instructed. The force beneath Adrian's restraint changed the room. Gideon's eyes narrowed by the smallest degree. Arabella looked at the prince and felt something dangerous move beneath her suspicion. Not trust, not yet. Recognition, perhaps. He had noticed the difference between evidence and convenience. That alone made him unlike the man from the ending she remembered. Adrian returned the watch to her. Miss Hart-well, you will remain available for further questions. Am I confined? No. Watched? Yes, at least that is honest. Lady Beatrice gave a soft cough. Adrian almost smiled this time. You will attend no royal railway event without a chaperone approved by the household. You also receive no unaltered operational schedule. Then how am I to help identify alterations? Who said you would help? You showed me the paper. I questioned you about it, and listened when I answered. Gideon spoke before Adrian could reply. Your Royal Highness, allowing Miss Hart-well further access would be unwise. Adrian looked at him. So would ignoring the only person who recognized the danger in time. Then he turned back to Arabella. Tomorrow morning, I will send 3 redacted itineraries to Hart-well House. You will examine them in Lady Beatrice's presence. Alistair stepped forward. That is unnecessary. It is decided. Adrian's tone ended the matter. He moved toward the door, then stopped beside Arabella's chair. You asked what I should trust, she said quietly. I remember, not the schedule, not the seal, not even the person who appears most certain. What remains? Arabella looked at the watch in her palm. The second hand twitched. Once. Twice. Then it began to move. 9 small beats sounded between them. When it stopped again, the minute hand had shifted from 12:17 to 12:26. Adrian saw it. Lady Beatrice saw it. Even Gideon's composure cracked. Adrian lowered his voice. That, he said, is not reassuring. No. Arabella closed the watch. But it is a pattern. By 10 the following morning, 3 redacted itineraries lay open across the drawing-room table at Hart-well House, each bearing a different date, destination, and official purpose. One concerned a hospital charity review. Another detailed a diplomatic luncheon. The third described a private visit to a railway works outside London. At first glance, the pages had nothing in common except the blue seal of House Ravenscourt and the careful black hand of the Royal Household Office. Arabella knew better than to trust first glances now. Lady Beatrice sat near the window with a basket of untouched embroidery in her lap. Prince Adrian stood opposite Arabella, one hand resting against the back of a chair. His private secretary, Mr. Julian Vale, waited near the door with a locked dispatch case. Lord Alistair had declared himself too occupied by government business. To attend, though he had objected for nearly 15 minutes before leaving the house, his absence felt less like freedom than proof that he preferred not to witness whatever his daughter might become. The names of the routes, guards, and station officers have been removed, Adrian said. You have the sequence of events, the approved times, and the later corrections. Who made the corrections? Arabella asked. That is one of the questions. And who had access to the originals? Another. She looked at him. You are giving me a puzzle with half the pieces missing. I am giving you enough to identify a pattern without exposing the Crown's full arrangements. That is reasonable. Adrian's brows lifted slightly, as though he had expected resistance. You sound disappointed. I am adjusting to being treated as though caution and contempt are different things. Lady Beatrice made a soft sound of approval. Mr. Vale lowered his eyes, though Arabella suspected he was hiding amusement. Adrian gestured toward the documents. Tell me what you see. Arabella began with the hospital review. The approved arrival was 11:20. A later correction moved it to 11:11. The diplomatic luncheon had been delayed from 1:30 to 1:39. The railway visit had shifted from 3:10 to 3:1. Each change was small enough to appear clerical. Each created a gap of exactly 9 minutes. She placed the pages side by side. The first moves the Crown earlier. The second moves it later. The third moves it earlier again. Adrian nodded. Which suggests not a single attempt to place you at one exact location. She traced the sequence with one finger. Someone is testing how your household responds when time changes unexpectedly. Mr. Vale stepped closer. Explain. Who notices first? Who sends the messenger? Which clerk records the correction? Whether the guards obey the written page or the spoken order? How long it takes for the revised time to reach the carriage master? She looked at the 3 itineraries again. The danger may not be the 9 minutes themselves. The danger is what those 9 minutes reveal. Adrian's expression sharpened. A map of our response. Yes, built one alteration at a time, and probably without anyone realizing the tests were connected. Lady Beatrice set aside her embroidery. Most institutions fail by dividing one danger into several harmless explanations. Arabella looked at the watch beside the documents. Its hands remained fixed at 12:26. Whoever is doing this does not need to control every person. Only the places where information changes hands. Mr. Vale opened his notebook. The itineraries were prepared in separate offices. The paper was not. Arabella lifted the corner of the diplomatic schedule. Same watermark, same blue edge, same ruling. Even the hospital review, which should have been issued through the charitable household office. Adrian looked toward Mr. Vale. Is that correct? Mr. Vale examined the sheet. It is. The paper came from the central stationery supply. Who supervises it? Arabella asked. The household comptroller signs the orders. Distribution is handled by approved clerks. And who selected the supplier? Mr. Vale hesitated. Lord Blackmere's office advised on the contract last year. The room grew quieter. Arabella did not mistake connection for proof. Gideon had taught them how dangerous that was. He may only have recommended the supplier, she said. Adrian watched her. You are defending him. I am refusing to accuse him because the paper is convenient. Something in his expression changed. Respect, perhaps, or relief that she had not become careless merely because carelessness might now benefit her. Then, what would you require? He asked. Evidence that the stationery source was used to introduce revised pages or false seals. A clerk who received unusual instructions, a delivery record, something beyond access. Adrian glanced at the silver watch. And if the watch moves again, then I will consider it evidence of a pattern, not of a person. Before he could reply, the drawing-room door opened. A royal messenger entered under the escort of the butler, carrying a narrow blue packet. He bowed to Adrian. "Your Royal Highness, revised arrangements for tomorrow's charity review." Mr. Vale stepped forward, but Arabella's attention had already settled on the packet. The blue wax seal appeared correct. The paper beneath it did not. A faint crest showed through the fold when the light struck from the window. Not the royal raven of House Ravenscourt. A black tower above crossed keys. She had seen the emblem once in the novel, stamped on letters no one had thought important until too late. Blackmere. "Do not open it," Arabella said. The messenger froze. "Mr." Vale looked at Adrian, who looked at her. "Why?" he asked. "The watermark." She rose and held the unopened packet toward the light without touching the seal. "This paper came from Blackmere estate stock." The messenger's face changed. "That cannot be, miss. I received it from the royal dispatch room." "From whom?" Adrian asked. "Mr. Sallow, sir, third desk." Mr. Vale wrote the name down. "Did you see him seal it?" "No, sir. It was waiting in the outgoing tray." Lady Beatrice's gaze cooled. A tray is a remarkably useful accomplice. Adrian took the packet by its edges. "Mr. Vale, place this in the case. The messenger remains available for questioning." The young man bowed, visibly shaken. "Yes, sir." The butler had barely closed the door behind him when another visitor was announced. Lord Gideon Blackmere entered with perfect timing and an expression of grave concern. "Your Royal Highness, I was informed that a revised charity schedule may have been mishandled." Arabella looked at Adrian. He heard it too. The packet had arrived less than 2 minutes before Gideon. "Who informed you?" Adrian asked. Gideon paused. "A clerk attached to the household office." "Name? I would need to confirm it." "Then confirm it." Gideon's gaze moved to the documents on the table, then to Arabella. "Miss Hart-well appears deeply involved." "Miss Hart-well identified the false paper before it was opened," Adrian said. "False?" Gideon repeated. "The seal is genuine." "The paper is yours," Arabella said. His eyes settled on her. "My office uses many papers. This one bears your estate watermark beneath a royal seal. Then perhaps someone wishes to implicate me." "Perhaps." Her calm answer seemed to unsettle him more than accusation would have. "You do not sound convinced." "I am not convinced of anything yet." Gideon stepped closer to the table. "Then allow me to examine the packet." Adrian moved between him and Mr. Vale's dispatch case without appearing to do so. "No." The single word carried more force than any raised voice. Gideon inclined his head. "Of course." Arabella looked at the 3 itineraries, then at the sealed packet that had arrived while they were discussing supply chains. "Someone knew what we were examining." Mr. Vale's pencil stopped. This room was secured. The subject was not, she said. The moment His Royal Highness brought these schedules here, anyone watching messenger traffic would know the inquiry had narrowed. Adrian's gaze went to the windows, the doors, and finally Gideon. Then the packet is not merely another alteration. No, Arabella felt the silver watch beneath her fingertips. It is a reply. Gideon's composure remained intact, but his hand tightened once around the head of his cane. A dramatic interpretation. A timely one. The watch clicked. Every person in the room heard it. Once, twice. Then 7 more beats followed beneath the silence. When the mechanism stopped, the minute hand had advanced from 12:26 to 12:35. Lady Beatrice crossed herself. Mr. Vale stared at the watch. Gideon did not. He stared at Arabella. Adrian broke the silence first. "Miss Hart-well, I want your assistance for 7 days. Under conditions. State them." Arabella drew a blank sheet toward her. "Lady Beatrice or another approved chaperone remains present. No private room of mine is searched unless I am there. Any serious suspicion against me is told to me directly, and my ignorance is never used as part of a plan without my consent." Gideon gave a quiet laugh. "You intend to negotiate with the Crown?" "I intend to know the price before I serve it." Adrian took the pen from Mr. Vale. "Write the conditions." Arabella did. He read each line, then signed without alteration. Gideon's expression cooled. "Your Royal Highness, this grants unusual influence to a woman under inquiry." Adrian set the pen down. "It grants defined protection to the person who prevented yesterday's disaster and identified today's false packet." He handed the signed page to Arabella. "For 7 days." "For 7 days," she agreed. Gideon bowed and departed with less grace than he had entered. The door had scarcely closed when the butler returned, carrying a small locked chest of dark walnut. Dust marked its brass corners, but the keyhole bore fresh scratches. "This was found in the sealed upper storeroom, miss," he said. "It is labelled with Lady Miriam Hart-well's name." Arabella looked at the silver watch, then at the disturbed lock. Someone had searched her mother's secrets before she knew they existed. The key to Lady Miriam Hart-well's chest was not in the household inventory. The butler produced 3 old keys from the upper storeroom, none of which turned the lock. Mr. Vale examined the fresh scratches around the brass plate and said someone had tried to open it within the past week. Arabella stood beside the drawing-room table with the silver watch in her hand and felt the room alter around the chest. It was no longer an object recovered from storage. It was a secret someone had recently feared. Lady Beatrice sent the servants away and closed the door. Prince Adrian remained near the window, far enough from Arabella to make clear that the chest still belonged to her. "You need not open it now," he said. "Someone else believed I should never open it at all." Arabella knelt beside the chest and studied the lock. The scratches were shallow and uneven, made by impatience rather than skill. A narrow groove ran along the left hinge where dust had been disturbed. "It may not open from the front." Lady Beatrice leaned closer. "Your mother disliked obvious solutions." "Did you know her well?" Arabella asked. "Well enough to know she was never idle, however often men called her fanciful." The words caught somewhere beneath Arabella's ribs. She placed the watch against the brass hinge. The silver case fit into the groove as though designed for it. When she pressed the winding crown inward, a hidden spring released with a soft click. The lid lifted half an inch. Mr. Vale drew a breath. Adrian did not move. He waited until Arabella raised the lid herself. Inside lay a watchmaker's case, several folded sheets of pressure copy tissue, and one small envelope bearing Arabella's name in her mother's hand. The handwriting struck her more sharply than the discovery. It was elegant but firm, with no sign of the trembling instability Alistair had described. She broke the seal. The note contained only 4 lines. "If they call observation a nervous fancy, write down the hour. Time is the one witness they cannot flatter. Keep the watch closed until you are certain who is watching you. Trust the person who asks permission before touching what is yours." Arabella read the final line twice. Adrian's gaze had lowered to the watchmaker's case, but he had not reached for it. She wondered whether he understood why that restraint now mattered. "What does it say?" Lady Beatrice asked. Arabella handed her the note. Lady Beatrice read it silently, then pressed the paper flat with one gloved finger. Miriam knew they were dismissing her. Who were they? Adrian asked. My father, perhaps. Men in government. Anyone who benefited from calling a woman unstable. Arabella heard bitterness in her voice and did not soften it. She left no names. Not in the note, Mr. Vale said. Perhaps elsewhere. Arabella opened the watchmaker's case. A velvet recess held a thin circular plate of engraved silver, the exact size of the watch's inner back. The watch itself had a second latch hidden beneath the hinge. She found it because Miriam's note had told her to keep the watch closed until she knew who was watching. Arabella glanced toward Adrian. May I ask you to hold the outer case? His expression changed slightly. You may. He came to the table, but waited until she placed the watch in his palm. His fingers closed around the edges, never covering the hidden seam. Arabella used the point of a hairpin to release the inner plate. It lifted free. Beneath it lay a ring of tiny engraved marks, each paired with a station code and a time. Ashbridge Junction, Northwick Yard, Black Hollow signal box. 9 times were marked in sequence, each separated by 9 minutes. The first was 12:17. The last had been underlined twice. Mr. Vale bent closer. These are railway timings. Not timetables, Arabella said. Intervals. She placed the engraved plate beside the 3 redacted itineraries. The first corrected arrival, 11:11, matched one of the engraved times when adjusted from the station clock reference printed in the corner. The second and third matched as well. Lady Beatrice looked from the plate to the watch. Your mother recorded the same pattern 7 years ago, which means the current alterations are not new. Adrian's voice had become very quiet, only resumed. Arabella touched the engraved words Ashbridge Junction, or never stopped. Mr. Vale unfolded the pressure copy tissue. Most sheets were blank, but faint impressions emerged when held toward the light. Reversed letters, partial times, fragments of official headings. One line appeared 3 times in different pressure depths. Hold, private wire clear for 9 minutes. Another read, confirm by Ashbridge, not Royal Moot. These are copies made beneath another document, Mr. Vale said. Pressure transferred through the top sheet. Can the original words be recovered? Adrian asked. Some of them, not all. Arabella looked at the chest-scratched lock. Whoever searched this may have wanted these tissues. Or the watch plate, Lady Beatrice said, which would explain why the watch began moving now, Arabella replied. Someone disturbed the mechanism while trying to find the compartment. Adrian looked at her. You believe the ticking was mechanical, not prophetic. I believe anything supernatural should be suspected last. That is a disappointing answer. It is also safer. His mouth almost curved. Then the watch clicked between his fingers. Arabella froze. The second hand moved once and stopped. Adrian lowered his eyes to it. Safer does not appear to mean simple. She reached for the watch, but stopped before taking it. May I? He asked. The echo of Miriam's note passed through her. Yes. He turned the case so she could examine the movement. A tiny brass pin beneath the inner plate had been bent inward. When the lid pressed against it, the watch released a measured series of beats before stopping. Not magic. A signal. A mechanism designed to wake only when the hidden plate was disturbed. My mother built this warning into the watch, Arabella said. Or had someone build it for her? To tell you the compartment had been opened, Adrian said, not when danger would occur. Arabella looked at the 9 engraved intervals, but she linked the warning to the same number. Lady Beatrice folded Miriam's note carefully. She expected the person opening it to understand. I do not. Not yet, Adrian said. The words held no condescension, only confidence she had not earned from him and did not know how to receive. Mr. Vale pointed to the underlined station code. Ashbridge Junction appears again here. The last marked time is 12:17. Tomorrow, Arabella said. The Charity Review message. Adrian looked at the redacted itinerary. The official route did not pass within 20 miles of Ashbridge Junction. A message from a station outside the royal route, he said. At the exact hour your mother's watch stopped, and through a private wire held clear for 9 minutes. The drawing-room door opened before anyone answered. Lord Alistair entered without being announced. He stopped when he saw the chest, the open watch, and Miriam's note in Lady Beatrice's hand. The colour left his face. Where did you find that? Arabella rose slowly. In Mother's chest, it should have remained sealed. Why? Because grief made her attach meaning to ordinary irregularities. She documented private wire orders and station codes. Alistair's gaze went to Adrian. Your Royal Highness, these papers are family property and have no bearing on state affairs. They refer to royal communications, Adrian said. That gives them bearing. My wife was unwell. Arabella picked up Miriam's note. She anticipated that exact sentence. Alistair looked at the page and said nothing. Did you know about Ashbridge Junction? She asked. No. Did you know she suspected private railway messages? His silence lasted too long. Adrian did not rescue him from it. Did you know? Arabella repeated. Alistair's jaw tightened. She believed Lord Blackmere influenced appointments beyond his authority. And what did you do? I protected the government from accusation without proof. You protected the government from her. Pain crossed his face, but defensiveness returned first. You do not understand what public scandal destroys. I am beginning to. He reached for the note. Arabella stepped back. Adrian moved only half a pace, enough to place himself beside her rather than in front of her. The papers remain with Miss Hart-well, he said. They belonged to my wife. The note is addressed to your daughter. Alistair's hand lowered. Arabella looked at the final engraved line beneath the hidden plate. Ashbridge, 12:17, private wire. Beneath it, nearly invisible, Miriam had added 3 words, the message, comes tomorrow. Arabella closed the watch around the plate. Then tomorrow, she said, we will be waiting when it arrives. At 12 minutes past noon the next day. The private wire office near Westminster sounded almost too ordinary for a place where Arabella expected the past to speak. Brass keys clicked behind a long counter. Clerks bent over message slips beneath shaded lamps. A delivery boy waited beside the door with rain darkening his cap. Nothing in the room announced conspiracy. That, Arabella had begun to understand, was how conspiracy survived. It borrowed the furniture of routine. Lady Beatrice sat in a straight-backed chair near the wall, her expression severe enough to discourage conversation. Prince Adrian stood beside the public clock, with Mr. Julian Vale at his shoulder. Arabella remained near the end of the counter, where she could see the clerks, the instrument bells, and the narrow door marked private wire. The silver watch rested in her gloved hand. Its face still showed 12:17. 5 minutes, Adrian said quietly. You need not remain close to the instrument. The instrument is less likely to accuse me than the people around it. His gaze moved over her face. That was not what I meant. I know. The answer softened something between them without resolving it. A heavy-set supervisor named Mr. Harcourt hovered near the counter, repeatedly polishing his spectacles. He had been told only that the heir to House Ravenscourt wished to observe a routine message. His anxiety had already made the entire office less routine. "Your Royal Highness," he said, "the private wire is functioning properly. There has been no irregular traffic this morning." "Then we shall all be reassured in 5 minutes," Adrian replied. Arabella watched the clerks instead of Harcourt. Most stole glances at Adrian and immediately returned to their work. One young man at the far instrument did not look at the prince at all. His eyes remained fixed on the private wire door and the clock above it. He was thin, perhaps 20 years old, with carefully mended cuffs and ink pressed into the side of his smallest finger. At 12:14, he wiped his palms against his trousers. At 12:15, a senior clerk crossed behind him and murmured something too low to hear. The young man's shoulders tightened. "Which clerk receives Ashbridge Junction?" Arabella asked. Harcourt adjusted his spectacles. "Thomas Reed, miss." The young man at the far desk. "Yes, he appears unwell. Mr. Reed is inexperienced." "He is not watching the wire," Arabella said. "He is watching whoever expects it to ring." Harcourt's mouth tightened. "Miss Hart-well, nervousness is common when royal visitors observe junior staff." Adrian did not look at Arabella. "Mr. Reed has not looked at me once." The supervisor fell silent. At 12:16, the silver watch clicked inside Arabella's hand. The mechanism released one small beat, then another. Thomas Reed heard it from across the room. His head turned toward her. Recognition flashed across his face before he could hide it. Arabella's breath caught. "He knows the sound," she whispered. Adrian followed her gaze. "Or he knows what it means." The public clock reached 12:17. A bell rang twice at Thomas's instrument. He flinched so hard that his pen rolled off the desk. The senior clerk behind him stooped to retrieve it. But Thomas blocked the message slip with his arm, as though protecting it. Harcourt strode toward him. "Attend to the line, Reed." Thomas placed his fingers over the key. The message came through in short bursts. He copied quickly, blotting one word and rewriting it. When the bell fell silent, Harcourt took the slip before Thomas could fold it. Relief crossed his face as he read. Nothing of concern, a delivery confirmation. Adrian held out his hand. Harcourt gave him the paper. The message contained one sentence: 12 crates of blue hydrangeas. Confirmed for the carriage review. Deliver through West Loading Gate before 1. Lady Beatrice frowned. "Flowers. So it appears," Harcourt said. Arabella looked at the watch. It had stopped again. Where did the message originate? Ashbridge Junction. And does the royal charity route pass through Ashbridge? No. Then why would a florist send through that office? Harcourt glanced at the heading. Commercial routing can be indirect. Thomas Reed lowered his eyes. Arabella saw the movement. "Mr. Reed disagrees." Harcourt turned sharply. "Mr. Reed has not been asked." "Then ask him." The supervisor's tone cooled. "This is a technical office, miss. Procedure matters." "Then procedure should make the answer easier, not harder." Adrian stepped closer to the counter. "Mr. Reed, is Ashbridge Junction a usual origin for palace flower deliveries?" Thomas swallowed. "No, sir." What would be usual? A London commercial office or the nursery's local station? Why was this sent through the private wire? Thomas looked toward Harcourt. It was marked priority. Harcourt snatched the duty book from beside the instrument. "There is no written priority authorization. I was told not to enter it there." The room changed. The clerks nearest them stopped writing. Harcourt's face reddened. "By whom? A gentleman came yesterday. Name?" He did not give his own. Then whose did he give? Thomas's voice dropped. Mr. Lionel Fanes. Mr. Vale opened his notebook. Adrian remained very still. Lord Blackmere's secretary, he said. Thomas nodded. The gentleman showed a written authorization bearing Mr. Fane's name. He said, "The private wire must remain clear for 9 minutes before and after the message." Arabella felt the words move through her like cold air. "Did you record the request?" she asked. Thomas hesitated. Harcourt slammed one hand onto the desk. "Answer, His Royal Highness. I recorded it in the duty book. Mr. Harcourt told me to remove it." Every face turned toward the supervisor. Harcourt went pale beneath the flush. "I told him to strike out an unverified entry." "You told me to erase the name," Thomas said. "I copied it into my pocket record first." Harcourt stared at him. "You disobeyed a direct instruction." "Yes, sir." "Then you are suspended." Thomas's expression emptied. "Sir, please. My mother depends on my wages." "You concealed an irregular communication." "He preserved it," Arabella said. Harcourt rounded on her. "Miss Hart-well, you do not understand office discipline." "I understand that dismissal would remove the one clerk who kept evidence after his superior wanted it gone." He admitted disobedience. Fear and guilt are not the same thing. The words landed with more force than Arabella expected. She knew what it was to have nervousness translated into proof, because proof was convenient. Adrian looked at Thomas. "Why did you keep the record?" Thomas gripped the edge of the desk. The gentleman wore gloves indoors. Yellow sealing wax marked the right thumb. He smelled of machine oil, though his coat was too fine for workshop labor. And he knew the private wire intervals without checking the schedule. "Did you recognize him?" Adrian asked. "No, sir." "Could the authorization have been genuine?" The seal looked genuine. The signature did not. Mr. Vale opened the duty book to the crossed-out line. Thomas produced a small folded paper from inside his waistcoat. The copied name read Lionel Fane, but the letters leaned backward with heavy pressure. Mr. Vale removed another document from his case. Mr. Fane signed a household receipt last month. His genuine hand slanted forward and ended with a narrow flourish. The difference was immediate. Harcourt's confidence collapsed. Then the name was forged. "The signature was forged," Arabella said. "The access may still have been real." Adrian looked at her, because the man knew the intervals. And because he knew this office would obey the appearance of authority before asking whether it was true. Thomas stared at Arabella with startled gratitude. Adrian turned to Harcourt. "Mr. Reed remains at his post under supervision. He is not to be dismissed, questioned alone, or denied wages while this inquiry continues." Harcourt bowed stiffly. "Yes, sir." Arabella looked away from Thomas before relief could become humiliation. Adrian noticed. He always seemed to notice what she tried not to display. "The message itself," he said. "What does it achieve?" Arabella read it again. 12 crates, blue hydrangeas, west loading gate, before 1. "It is not about flowers. Then what?" "A delivery opens a gate, moves guards, and creates an excuse for delay." Mr. Vale unfolded the redacted charity arrangements. "The royal carriage passes the west loading gate at 1:17. Arabella looked at the watch. 12:17. 1:17. The same minute, shifted by an hour. The message is an instruction disguised as an errand. Adrian's expression sharpened. "To open the gate, or close it after the wagon passes." Harcourt moved toward the instrument. "I will warn the palace." "No," Arabella said. He stopped. "Why not?" Adrian asked. "Because whoever sent this expects a reaction. If we change the gate openly, they learn we understood. Then we do nothing. We make the gate appear unchanged. Inspect the wagon before it arrives. Replace the driver if necessary. Let anyone watching believe the message succeeded. Adrian considered her. And the carriage? Do not cancel the review. Change nothing visible until the last possible moment. That places people at risk, only if they do not know the truth. Tell those who must act. No one else. The private wire bell rang again. Thomas went white. He copied 6 words and handed the slip directly to Adrian. Blue gate secured. 9 minutes recovered. The silver watch clicked once in Arabella's palm. Adrian looked at the message, then at her. They know we intervened. No, Arabella said. They know someone was watching. The decision was made before the second message had finished cooling beneath Adrian's hand. The charity review would continue. The blue loading gate would remain open exactly as expected. The flower wagon would be stopped 2 streets away, inspected out of sight, and allowed to proceed only after its driver, crates, and papers had been replaced or cleared. No telegraph warning would be sent to the palace. Mr. Vale left the private wire office with handwritten instructions sealed beneath Adrian's signet. Thomas Reed remained at his desk under the watch of a railway officer, while Mr. Harcourt was confined to the supervisor's room until his actions could be examined. Arabella stood beside the counter with her mother's watch closed in her palm and felt every eye in the office trying not to follow her. She had expected suspicion. She had not expected Adrian to turn toward her and ask, "Will you attend the review?" The question startled her more than an order would have done. "You still intend to go? If I withdraw now, whoever sent that message learns exactly how much we understood. And if they expect you to reason that way, then absence tells them something as well." He paused. "I am asking whether you will come. I am not requiring it." Lady Beatrice watched him closely from her chair. Arabella looked at the private wire door, the copied signature, and the message that had answered their discovery before they could act. Lady Cecily Fairborn would be at the review. In the novel, Cecily had stood near the royal family, through every early incident, admired for her composure, and treated as a likely future bride for the heir. She had not been the architect of the conspiracy, but she had repeated the right rumor at the wrong time and helped make Arabella's guilt believable. Avoiding her now would leave one of the most dangerous channels unobserved. "I will attend," Arabella said. "By choice." Adrian held her gaze. By choice. The carriage ride to the palace grounds took less than 15 minutes. Lady Beatrice sat opposite Arabella, while Adrian occupied the forward-facing seat beside the door. Mr. Vale rode outside with the driver after dispatching the equerry toward the master of horse. The silver watch lay on Arabella's lap. She had opened the outer case, but left the hidden plate untouched. "The plan is simple," Adrian said. "The wagon is inspected before it reaches the palace. If nothing is found, it proceeds. The gate appears to operate as usual. The carriage order remains unchanged." "And the guards?" Arabella asked. "2 men dressed as footmen will remain near the gate. Another watches from the stable roof." "Who knows? The master of horse, Mr. Vale, Lady Beatrice, you, and me. Lord Blackmere? No. My father? No." The answer came without apology. Arabella looked through the carriage window at London, passing in grey stone and damp brick. If someone is studying your response, exclusion can be as revealing as action. Blackmere has been assigned to receive the charitable trustees on the East Lawn. He will believe the review remains routine. And Lady Cecily? Adrian's expression sharpened slightly. "Why do you ask?" "Because she was present at the railway exhibition, and because people speak freely near women, they consider decorative. Lady Beatrice adjusted one glove. Lady Cecily's mother has spent 3 seasons encouraging the belief that Cecily will one day marry into House Ravenscourt. Such expectations attract information even when they do not attract affection. Adrian's face remained controlled, but the silence inside the carriage changed. Cecily receives no operational schedules, he said. She may not need them. She only needs access to someone who does. Do you believe she is involved? I believe she wants a future badly enough to overlook who offers it. Adrian studied Arabella for a moment. You are careful not to call that guilt. I know what convenient guilt looks like. The carriage wheel struck a rut. The watch slid across Arabella's lap. Adrian reached out and caught it before it fell. His fingers closed around the chain, not the case. He waited. May? He asked. Arabella nodded. He placed the watch back into her hand. The small courtesy should not have mattered so much. It did because her mother's note had made permission impossible to dismiss as manners alone. There is one further point, Adrian said. You will remain with Lady Beatrice. That sounds less like a point than an instruction. It is a boundary. For whose safety? Yours. Only mine? His jaw tightened. No. The truth in the answer warmed and unsettled her at once. He looked toward the window before continuing. Stay where I can see you. Arabella felt the words settle differently from command. Only if seeing me does not become deciding for me. He looked back, agreed. And if I notice something, you tell me before acting. If there is time, there must be. That is what the missing minutes keep taking. He had no easy answer. The carriage slowed near the palace entrance. Before the footman opened the door, Adrian said, I do not wish to discover afterward that you ran toward danger because you believed no one else had noticed it. Arabella looked at him, then noticed sooner. Lady Beatrice turned her face toward the opposite window, but not before Arabella saw the faintest trace of approval. The palace grounds were already crowded when they arrived. Silk parasols moved above the lawns. Trustees gathered near striped tents. A military quartet played beneath a white canopy while servants carried trays of lemonade and programs printed on blue bordered paper. The west loading gate stood partly hidden behind a row of flowering trees. A wagon painted with a nursery's name waited beyond it, 12 crates of blue hydrangeas stacked beneath a canvas cover. From a distance, everything appeared orderly. Arabella counted the visible guards, 2 near the gate, one disguised as a footman beside the refreshments. The stable roof watcher was absent, or hidden too well. Lord Gideon Blackmere crossed the east lawn toward a group of charitable trustees, exactly where Adrian had placed him. He bowed to Arabella with perfect courtesy and did not approach. That restraint alarmed her more than interference would have done. Miss Hart-well. Lady Cecily Fairborn's voice came from behind. Arabella turned. Cecily wore pale green silk with pearl embroidery at the sleeves and a composure polished by years of being watched. Her beauty was gentle enough to appear harmless. Her eyes were not. I heard you were unwell at the terminus, Cecily said, then unexpectedly heroic. News travels quickly, especially when it contradicts expectation. Cecily's gaze dropped to the silver watch. Is that Lady Miriam's? It was. What a severe little thing. She extended one gloved hand. May I? Arabella should have refused. Instead, she allowed Cecily to touch only the chain while the watch remained in her palm. Cecily leaned closer, examining the worn silver case. It has not kept time in years, has it? Arabella's attention sharpened. How do you know? Your mother carried it everywhere. Society notices peculiar habits. Society noticed very little about my mother. Cecily's smile thinned. Perhaps more than you think. She released the chain. The contact lasted no more than 3 seconds. Arabella closed her fingers around the watch. Across the lawn, the flower wagon began moving through the west gate. The driver was not the same man Arabella had seen from the carriage. That was expected. The clock fixed beside the wagon seat was not. Its hands showed 1:17, though the palace clock had not yet reached 1:08. 9 minutes fast. Arabella looked toward Adrian. He was speaking with the master of horse, but his attention shifted to her almost at once. She touched the watch chain twice, their agreed signal for an irregularity. Adrian turned toward the gate. At that exact moment, the military quartet ended its piece. The applause came early, too early. A footman near the carriage line lifted a program marked with a handwritten blue correction. The royal carriages began to move before the master of horse had given the visible signal. That interval was shortened, Arabella said. Cecily opened her fan. Was it? By 9 minutes. The second carriage emerged from behind the trees, drawn by 2 horses rather than 4. Only the 5 people in Adrian's carriage had known that contingency would be used if the gate appeared compromised. Arabella's blood went cold. She opened the silver watch. The outer case resisted. Something had shifted beneath the hinge. She pressed the hidden catch and lifted the inner plate. Her mother's engraved station ring was gone. In its place lay a narrow strip of fresh blue bordered paper. Arabella unfolded it beneath the shelter of her hand. Second carriage, blue gate, 2 horses. Close at 12:17. The carriage bells sounded from the path. Arabella looked up. A palace servant had already taken hold of the gate. Someone had learned the full revised plan before they reached the lawn. The servant at the blue gate began to pull it inward as the second carriage approached. Arabella did not have time to call Adrian's name. The applause still rolled across the lawn, bright and useless, while the 2-horse carriage came on too quickly for the narrow turn. A young page stood beside the gatepost with a stack of blue-bordered programs balanced against his chest. He had turned toward the music and did not see the carriage. Arabella closed her hand around the false strip and ran. Cecily called after her, but the sound disappeared beneath the horses' bells. Arabella crossed the gravel path, cut between 2 trustees, and nearly lost 1 shoe on the edge of the lawn. The servant pulling the gate looked up too late. The page remained frozen. Arabella reached him first. She caught his shoulders and dragged him backward onto the grass. The programs flew from his arms and scattered beneath the carriage wheels. The driver hauled the reins. The horses swerved. 1 wheel struck the edge of the gate with a sharp metallic crack, but the carriage stayed upright and stopped several feet beyond the post. The garden fell silent by degrees. First the music stopped, then the applause. Then even the servants seemed to forget how to move. The page clung to Arabella's sleeve, breathing hard. "Are you hurt?" she asked. He shook his head. "Can you stand?" He nodded. Lady Beatrice reached them and took the boy's hand. "Stay with me," she said. Arabella released him only when she was certain he could walk. As she rose, the silver watch slipped from her hand. It struck the gravel and opened. The fresh strip of blue bordered paper slid free. It landed face upward between Arabella and the approaching guests. Second carriage, blue gate, 2 horses, close at 12:17. Lord Gideon Blackmere arrived beside Adrian before anyone else reached the note. His gaze moved from the damaged gate to the paper, Then to Arabella. He did not accuse her. He looked almost regretful. "Your Royal Highness," he said, "no one beyond the inner carriage party should have known those arrangements." The sentence did more damage than a shout would have done. Heads turned toward Arabella. The trustees drew closer. 2 ambassadors stood near enough to read the strip. Lady Cecily remained several yards away, her fan closed in both hands. Adrian did not look at Gideon first. He looked at Arabella. "Where did that paper come from?" "Inside my watch." "The watch you carried from Hart-well House?" Gideon asked gently. Arabella heard the trap in the courtesy. "Yes, the watch only you handled." Cecily stepped forward. "I touched the chain for a moment." Her voice was soft, almost embarrassed, but Miss Hart-well kept the watch in her own hand. Arabella looked at her. Cecily had not lied. She had chosen the smallest truth and left the most dangerous part untouched. "You knew it had not worked in years," Arabella said. "Your mother carried it often," Cecily replied. "Society remembers peculiar things. Society remembers whatever serves the present room." Gideon bent without touching the paper. The note records the second carriage, the blue gate, the reduced team, and the closing time. "That is remarkable precision." "It is also new paper," Arabella said. She pointed to the programs scattered on the gravel. The same border, the same weight. One torn program lay near the wheel, its blue edge ripped away. Adrian picked it up and placed it beside the strip. The fibers matched. "This was prepared for today," he said. "That proves only when it was written," Gideon replied. "Not by whom, nor for whom," Arabella said. "Yet you began with me." Gideon met her gaze. "Because it was found in your possession, after someone replaced my mother's engraved plate." A murmur moved through the crowd. Adrian's attention sharpened. "The plate is gone?" "Yes." "When did you last see it?" "This morning, before we left the private wire office." "Who touched the watch after that?" Arabella looked at Cecily. For 1 second, fear showed beneath the rival's composure. Then it vanished. "Lady Cecily touched the chain," Arabella said. "Not the case." Cecily lifted her chin. "You allowed it." "I did." Then perhaps the compartment was already altered. Arabella could have accused her. She could have said Cecily knew too much, stood too near, and had everything to gain from Arabella's disgrace. But accusation without proof was still accusation, even when suspicion burned. "Perhaps," Arabella said. "I will not call certainty what is only access." Adrian heard the restraint. So did Gideon. His expression cooled by a fraction. Lord Alistair Hart-well arrived from the trustees' tent with 2 ministers behind him. He saw the note on the ground and went pale. "What has happened?" Gideon answered before Arabella could. "A detailed instruction for the carriage incident was found inside your daughter's watch." Alistair looked at Arabella, then toward the ministers. The government knew nothing of this. The page was still standing beside Lady Beatrice. Arabella had just saved him, yet her father's first instinct was to protect his office from her. The pain was not new. That made it worse. "I did not ask what the government knew," Arabella said. "Arabella, this is not the time for insolence. It seems to be the time for everyone else to speak about me." Alistair lowered his voice. "You will say nothing further until we understand the consequences." "For whom?" His eyes moved toward the ministers again. That was answer enough. Gideon straightened. "Your Royal Highness, prudence requires that Miss Hart-well be removed from the grounds and her belongings searched." Adrian's expression hardened. "Searched on what authority?" "The note was found in an object she carried, after she ran toward a moving carriage and saved a child." A conspirator might intervene to control the outcome. The words drew a sharper murmur. Arabella looked at Gideon. Then I arranged a collision mild enough to spare everyone, dangerous enough to require action, and public enough to condemn myself. You knew the gate would close. I knew because I read the note seconds before it happened. Convenient. No, convenient would have been standing beside Lady Cecily and pretending not to notice. Cecily's face tightened. Adrian crouched near the watch without touching it. The outer case is scratched. From the gravel, Gideon said. No, Adrian pointed to the hinge. There is a fresh tool mark beneath the rim. Someone opened the inner plate with something narrower than Miss Hart-well's hairpin. Arabella's breath eased slightly. He had noticed what others had not. Again, Lady Beatrice brought the young page forward. The boy's face was pale, but his voice held. Miss Hart-well shouted before the carriage turned, he said. She came before the note fell. Gideon regarded him with polite sympathy. You were frightened. Yes, sir. Fear can confuse sequence. Arabella looked at him. Fear does not make time run backward. Adrian rose. The child's account stands. Gideon's tone remained calm. Even so, the precision of the note cannot be dismissed. It will not be, Adrian said. Neither will Miss Hart-well be condemned, because the evidence arrived inside, an object someone else had reason to alter. He turned to the captain of the guard. Close the blue gate. Secure the carriage, the programs, and the watch. No guest or servant leaves without being identified. Arabella's hand closed around the empty chain. The watch belongs to me. Adrian looked at her. Do you consent to its examination in your presence? The question moved through the crowd as quietly as a blade. Gideon had asked for seizure. Adrian asked permission. Arabella nodded. In my presence. Then it remains with Lady Beatrice until the examination. He handed it to the dowager rather than a guard. Publicly, unmistakably, he preserved Arabella's ownership. Then he faced the gathered trustees and guests. Miss Hart-well is not under arrest. She is a witness under royal protection. The words struck the crowd, but not enough to erase what had already been whispered into being. Arabella could see it in the distance opening around her. Ladies who had admired her courage minutes earlier now watched as though danger might pass through fabric. Alistair stepped away to speak with the ministers. Cecily lowered her gaze, though her fingers gripped her fan too tightly. Gideon remained composed. He had not won, but he had moved the room closer to where he wanted it. Adrian came to Arabella's side only after the guards had cleared the immediate path. You are not hurt? He asked quietly. Not where anyone can see. His eyes changed. Arabella. It was the first time he had used her name without title. She looked at him. Did you know this review might be used as a test? He did not answer quickly enough. The silence opened beneath her like a missing step. You knew, she said. I knew whoever altered the messages might react to your presence. Did you know they might approach me? It was possible. Did you know they might place something on me? His jaw tightened. Yes, and you did not tell me. I told you the danger to the carriage. You did not tell me I was part of the plan. Around them, servants gathered the scattered blue programs. One torn border caught beneath Arabella's shoe. Adrian looked at the signed conditions he had promised only yesterday, as though he could see the line he had crossed written between them. I believed I could protect you, he said. Arabella met his gaze. You protected the operation. You used my ignorance to do it. Arabella did not answer him until Lady Beatrice had led them beneath the stone colonnade beyond the western lawn, where the noise of the charity review softened behind carved pillars and rain-dark ivy. The damaged carriage had been removed from sight. The young page was safe with a palace nurse. Guards had closed the blue gate. None of it changed the fact that Adrian had broken the meaning of the promise he had signed while preserving every word on the page. Lady Beatrice stopped several feet away, near enough to satisfy propriety and far enough to grant them honesty. Arabella held out her hand. The agreement. Adrian's expression tightened. He removed the folded sheet from inside his coat and gave it to her. His signature remained beneath the final condition. My ignorance will not be used as part of any plan without my consent. Arabella read the line once, though she already knew it by heart. You understood this when you signed it. Yes, you knew the enemy might react to my presence. Yes, you knew they might approach me, alter something I carried, or create evidence against me. I knew those risks existed, and you decided I should not know because knowledge might change my behavior. Adrian looked at her directly. Yes, the honesty struck harder than an excuse would have done. Arabella folded the agreement along its original crease. You trusted my usefulness. You did not trust my right to refuse. I trusted your judgment. Only after you had chosen which facts I was permitted to judge. He drew a breath, but she did not allow him to rescue the moment with rank or intention. You said I could choose whether to attend, she continued. But you withheld the very information that might have changed my answer. If I had told you, you might have stayed away. That is what choice means. And the person behind the messages might have remained hidden. Then you should have told me the cost and allowed me to decide whether exposing them was worth it. His jaw tightened. The safety of the crown affects more than either of us. So does destroying a woman's name. The words settled between them. Beyond the colonnade, music began again in the south garden, falsely cheerful. Adrian looked toward the lawn, then back to Arabella. I believed I could keep you safe. From physical harm, perhaps. From accusation as well. You failed. Pain moved through his face, controlled but visible. Yes. Arabella took the narrow written authorization from her reticule and placed it atop the folded agreement. Then our 7-day arrangement ends now. Arabella, do not use my name as though intimacy can repair what honesty did not prevent. His expression went still. Lady Beatrice lowered her gaze, offering them the privacy of not watching too closely. Adrian did not reach for the papers. You intend to withdraw from the inquiry. From your inquiry, the danger will not withdraw from you. It has not so far respected your protection. Without royal authority, you will have less access and fewer safeguards. Then I will learn what remains when usefulness is removed. He looked at the documents in her hand. You believe my protection was only control. Protection that requires my ignorance is control in royal clothing. He accepted the sentence without defense. That restraint did not erase the injury, but it prevented him from deepening it. What do you require for your departure? He asked. Arabella had expected argument, perhaps an order disguised as concern. The question disarmed her enough that she answered carefully. Lady Beatrice will escort me home. 2 guards may remain outside Hart-well house, not inside it. No one searches my rooms. No servant is questioned without my knowledge. Agreed. If the watch is examined, I am present. Agreed. You do not question Lady Cecily in my name. Adrian's attention sharpened. You suspect her. I know she touched the chain. I know she knew the watch had stopped for years. I know she omitted those facts until they became useful. That is more than suspicion. It is not proof. I will not condemn her by the method used against me." Something in his expression softened, though he had no right to look proud. "I will question her without saying you accused her." "I did not accuse her." "No." He took the folded agreement and authorization at last. "You did not." Arabella turned toward Lady Beatrice. Before she stepped away, Adrian spoke again. "I am sorry." She stopped. "For what?" "For deciding that duty made your consent unnecessary, for believing I could protect you from a danger I had not allowed you to measure, for keeping the promise in form and breaking it in truth." The apology was exact. That made it dangerous. Arabella looked back at him. "Do not ask me to forgive you because you have finally named the wound." "I will not." "Then what will you do?" "Learn what protection looks like when it does not place me in command of your choices." The answer entered her despite the anger she still needed. She inclined her head once. "Begin by letting me leave." Adrian stepped aside. The path opened. Arabella walked through it without looking back. By the time the carriage reached Hart-well House, London had already converted rumour into print. A newspaper boy at the corner cried that the Prime Minister's daughter had carried the royal carriage instructions inside her mother's watch. Lady Beatrice heard him and rapped twice against the carriage roof, not to stop the boy, but to urge the driver onward. "They have omitted the child you saved," she said. "Courage rarely survives the first edition." Arabella watched the street pass behind rain-streaked glass. "The accusation is easier to sell. Then we shall make the truth more difficult to ignore." Lord Alistair was waiting in the entrance hall when they arrived. He stood beneath the family portraits with one hand behind his back and the other gripping a copy of the afternoon paper. He did not ask whether Arabella had been hurt. She had expected no better, yet expectation did not dull the blow. "You will go upstairs," he said. "No callers, no correspondence, no further involvement in this absurd inquiry." Lady Beatrice removed her gloves one finger at a time. "Lord Hart-well, your daughter has just returned from saving a royal page. My daughter has returned from creating a scandal that may bring down the government." Arabella handed her cloak to the butler. "The government seems remarkably fragile if one woman's watch can destroy it." "Enough." Alistair turned to the servants. "Miss Hart-well is not to receive visitors, letters, railway notices, or household records without my approval." The butler hesitated. "My lord, that includes messages from the palace." Lady Beatrice's expression chilled. "You presume to intercept royal correspondence. I presume to govern my own house." Arabella looked at him. "You governed mother's silence too." His face changed. "Do not use her illness as a weapon. You used it as an explanation." She was unwell. She was watching the same pattern now threatening the crown. She saw patterns everywhere, and you saw none because looking would have cost you office. Alistair stepped closer. "You will not speak to me in this manner." Arabella felt the old version of herself, the fictional woman who had retreated into indifference because no answer had ever been safe, that life waited like a familiar room. She refused to enter it. "You may forbid the household to assist me," she said. "You cannot make me stop noticing." Alistair looked toward the butler. "See that she remains in her rooms." Arabella walked upstairs before anyone could pretend obedience had been forced from her. In her bedchamber, rain tapped against the windows. Her maid, Ellen, had laid out a clean dress, but had not touched the work table. Lady Beatrice placed the silver watch beside the lamp. "His Royal Highness ordered it, returned to you unopened." Arabella looked at her. He could have kept it as evidence. He could have. Lady Beatrice did not add more. She left after securing a promise that Ellen would remain nearby. Arabella waited until the door closed, then examined the watch beneath the strongest light. The false blue strip had been removed by the palace guard in her presence and sealed separately. The original engraved ring remained missing. A fresh scratch marked the inner hinge. Beneath it, caught in the narrow groove, was a smear of yellow residue. Arabella touched it with the tip of a pin. It flaked like sealing wax. A second trace clung beside it, dark and oily, machine oil. Thomas Reed had described both on the stranger, who ordered the private wire cleared. The watch had not been altered by Cecily alone, unless Cecily had spent the morning inside a railway workshop. Someone had opened it after contact with machinery and Blackmere-coloured wax. Arabella remembered the faint emblem on the false schedule paper, the altered signature, and the missing engraved ring. Her father had locked her away from records and messages. Adrian had lost the right to direct her. Neither fact changed what the clue demanded. She crossed to the bell pull, then stopped before using it. If Alistair had forbidden the servants to assist her, she would not endanger Ellen by asking. Instead, Arabella opened the small writing desk. Her father had overlooked and removed the calling card of Lady Marian Ashcroft, her widowed aunt, whose charity work regularly took her through railway supply districts. Arabella wrote only one sentence: "I require a respectable chaperone, a plain carriage, and someone willing to become lost near a signal workshop." She sealed the note with clear wax rather than blue, and slipped it beneath the morning prayer book Lady Marian's companion collected every Thursday. Then Arabella picked up the watch again. Adrian had once represented the only path toward the truth. He no longer did. The realization hurt less than it should have, perhaps because the path now belonged to her. Lady Marian Ashcroft arrived at Hart-well House before 9 the next morning, carrying a basket of devotional books, a severe black bonnet, and the expression of a widow no footman wished to inconvenience. Lord Alistair had approved her visit because prayer appeared harmless. He had forgotten that prayer books could carry notes beneath their covers, and that respectable women were often permitted to go where suspicious men were not. "Your father believes I have come to strengthen your character," Marian said, once Arabella's bedchamber door closed. "I have brought a plain cloak, walking shoes, and a carriage without a crest." Arabella looked into the basket. Beneath 2 volumes of sermons lay folded grey wool and a railway supply invoice bearing the stamp of a charitable workshop fund. "You understood my message. You wrote that you required someone willing to become lost near a signal workshop. I assumed accuracy would be unhelpful." Arabella changed behind the dressing screen, while explaining the yellow sealing wax, the machine oil, Thomas Reed's description, and the missing engraved ring from Miriam's watch. Marian listened without interruption. "You believe the watch was opened in a railway workshop," she said, "or by someone who had just left one, and your father has forbidden the household to help." "Yes." Marian fastened the throat of Arabella's cloak. "Then we must be especially careful not to involve the household." 20 minutes later, they left by the front entrance under the respectable pretense of visiting a charitable sewing room. The 2 royal guards across the street noticed the carriage and followed at a distance. Arabella did not object. Adrian had kept them outside the house as promised. She had withdrawn from his inquiry, not from danger. The railway signalling workshop near Ashbridge Freight Yard occupied a low brick building behind stacks of timber, iron lamps, and boxed glass lenses. Smoke rose from a rear chimney. Wagons rattled across the muddy yard, carrying brass fittings and signal arms painted in red and white. The air smelled of coal, hot metal, sealing wax, and oil. Arabella felt the watch grow heavier in her pocket. Marian presented the charity invoice to the manager, Mr. Pritchley, and explained that a contribution for widows' fuel had been entered under the wrong supplier. He frowned at the page, muttered about clerical foolishness, and led them through the main room toward a copying desk. Workers bent over lamp housings. A boy polished brass discs near the wall. At the far end, a narrow door opened into the furnace room, where discarded pressure copy sheets were burned after each week's accounts. Arabella stopped. A young clerk stood beside the furnace with a bundle of thin tissue papers in one hand. Another man in a dark coat watched from the doorway behind him. Arabella recognized the coat before she recognized the face. Mr. Lionel Fane, secretary to Lord Gideon Blackmere. She had seen him once in the novel beside a cabinet table, smiling while evidence changed hands. Fane noticed her. Surprise flashed, then vanished beneath courtesy. Miss Hart-well. The clerk beside the furnace went pale. Mr. Fane, Arabella said. I might say the same. His gaze moved toward Marian. Lady Ashcroft. Mr. Fane. Marian's tone made his name sound like a minor household stain. We are correcting a charity invoice. In the furnace room, the manager appears to have unusual filing habits. Mr. Pritchley hurried forward. The clerk was only destroying obsolete copies. Arabella looked at the bundle. The top tissue bore faint blue pressure marks. Before the accounts are checked, they are routine. Then there should be no objection to my seeing whether our charity name appears among them. Fane stepped between her and the furnace. These are private railway records. You just called them obsolete. Obsolete does not mean public. The young clerk's fingers tightened around the papers. A corner drifted toward the open furnace door. Arabella saw the pressure impression of a royal raven at the edge. Do not burn that sheet, she said. The clerk froze. Fane's voice sharpened. Ned, continue. The boy looked from Fane to Arabella. Mr. Pritchley. Marian said calmly, if a charitable account is destroyed while under dispute, I will be obliged to inform every widow's committee in London that your workshop burns records before verification. The manager's face changed. Reputation moved him where conscience had not. Ned, hold the papers. Fane turned. You take instruction from society ladies now? I take instruction from the man who pays me, Ned said, but his voice trembled. Arabella stepped closer. What did Mr. Fane order you to destroy? Nothing improper, miss. Then let me see the top sheet. Fane reached for the bundle. Marian moved her parasol between his hand and the clerk. Do not force me to strike a gentleman in a charitable establishment. The paperwork would be exhausting. Ned almost smiled. The moment broke his fear. He handed the top tissue to Arabella. She carried it toward the window. The pressure marks were faint but readable when held against the grey light. Royal departure advant, 9 minutes. Substitute engine, crew, suscipt signal confirmation from private wire. A second line named an unused diplomatic siding beyond Ravenscourt terminus. Arabella's pulse steadied rather than raced. The conspiracy was no longer a collection of irregularities. It was a route. Where did this come from? She asked. Ned looked at Fane. From a copy packet delivered 3 nights ago. By whom, Mr. Fane? Fane laughed softly. A frightened clerk will say anything when prompted by a prime minister's daughter under suspicion. Did you deliver the packet? Arabella asked him. No. Then why are you here while it is burned? His expression hardened. Lord Blackmere asked me to inspect supply accounts. At the furnace, you have already been warned against mistaking proximity for guilt. I am not accusing you of conspiracy. Arabella lifted the pressure sheet. I am asking why your presence follows every record someone tries to erase. Fane's gaze moved to the silver watch chain visible beneath her cloak. That object has caused you considerable trouble. You seem familiar with it. London is familiar with it now. Did you carry a black velvet case into this workshop? Ned answered before Fane could. He did. Fane turned sharply. Ned swallowed but continued. 3 days ago, he opened it near the ceiling bench. I saw silver inside. Arabella removed the watch. Yellow wax remained caught beneath the hinge. She held it beside the sealing sticks stacked on the bench. The color matched exactly. And the oil? She asked. Ned pointed toward a tray used for regulator keys and lamp mechanisms. That oil is used on the fine hinges. Fane's composure finally cracked. This is absurd. Any workshop in England might use yellow wax and machine oil. But not every workshop received a royal departure order naming a private siding. Arabella folded the pressure sheet and placed it inside her reticule. Fane stepped toward her. The 2 royal guards entered the main room at that moment, followed by Prince Adrian. He wore no ceremonial coat, only dark wool dampened by the yard mist. He stopped several feet from Arabella. He did not order her away. Lady Marian, he said first, bowing. Miss Hart-well. His gaze moved to Fane, the furnace, and the paper in Arabella's hand. My men reported your carriage. They followed without entering my father's house, Arabella said. As agreed. Yes. He looked at the document. What have you found? An instruction to move the royal train 9 minutes early, replace the crew, and accept signals from a private wire. The route leads to an unused diplomatic siding. Adrian's expression went cold. May I see it? Arabella heard the difference. Not give it to me. Not crown evidence. May I? Not yet. Fane stared at her as though refusal itself were treason. Adrian only nodded. Then it remains with you. You are not taking it. It is your evidence until you choose otherwise. The words shifted something inside her that anger had not entirely closed. Fane tried to move toward the door. One guard stepped into his path. Mr. Fane will remain available, Adrian said. No arrest yet. I want to know who comes looking for the missing sheet. Arabella looked at him. You are willing to wait. I am learning. The answer carried no demand for forgiveness. She respected that more than apology. Marian led Ned and Mr. Pritchley toward the front office to prepare written statements. Fane remained under guard near the furnace. Arabella and Adrian stood within sight of them, separated by several feet, and all that had happened beneath the palace colonnade. The train departs in 3 days, Adrian said. If the instruction is genuine, we must alter the route. If you alter it openly, Gideon learns we have the sheet. Then what do you propose? A test. Designed by you. Yes, with full terms stated before. I agree. She studied him. You remember, I intend to. Arabella took a blank telegraph form from the manager's desk. She wrote 1 sentence, folded the paper, and sealed it with Marian's clear wax. This message contains false information about the royal signal key. Send it through the private wire. Adrian held out his hand. May I know the wording? No. His expression did not change, but she saw the weight of what she had asked. You want me to transmit an unknown message through a royal channel. I want to know whether you trust my judgment when you cannot supervise it. He looked at the sealed paper, then at her. And if the message endangers the train? Then you will learn that trust has a cost before asking me to pay it again. Silence gathered between them. Fane watched from across the room. The furnace cracked softly behind him. At last Adrian extended his hand, palm upward. "Give it to me." Arabella placed the sealed message in his grasp. He did not turn it toward the light. "I will send it unopened," he said, "and I will not ask what it contains until the enemy answers." Adrian kept the sealed message in his own hand until it reached the private wire office. He did not give it to Mr. Vale in the carriage. He did not hold it toward the window. He did not ask Arabella whether one word might endanger the crown. At the counter, he watched Thomas Reed place the folded paper beneath the transmitting clip, then turned away before the clerk broke the outer handling seal. Arabella stood beside Lady Marian, her silver watch closed in one hand. She had expected Adrian to obey. She had not expected obedience to look so much like trust. "The message has been sent," Thomas said. "No copy retained here." Adrian looked at Arabella. "And now? Now we wait for someone to move." They did not wait long. 28 minutes later, Mr. Vale entered with 2 written notices. The first changed the Royal Train's departure from Platform 2 to Platform 5. The stated reason was congestion near the main signal line. The second authorized an immediate inspection of the diplomatic luggage van by a guard attached to Lord Blackmere's transport office. Arabella read both notices once. "Did the guard reach the van?" "He reached a van," Mr. Vale said. The one he believed contained the royal signal key. Adrian's gaze sharpened. "You changed the contents." "After the message was sent," Arabella said. "The false location named the diplomatic luggage van. If the private wire was being read, they would act there." "What did they find?" "Empty trunks and 2 railway officers behind the partition," Mr. Vale replied. "The guard claimed routine authority and asked for the signal key by name." Adrian looked at Arabella. "Only your message contained that location. Then someone inside the private wire passed it to Blackmere's office, or to someone using its authority. Either way, the response is enough." She placed the 2 notices side by side. The conspirator did not merely read the message. He altered the platform and sent a man to search the exact van within half an hour. Mr. Vale opened his notebook. "We can detain the guard." "Not yet," Arabella said. "If we arrest the first person who acts, Gideon will call him overzealous and cut away the rest." Adrian studied her. "You want him watched and allowed to report failure. Risky, yes. You do not ask me to pretend otherwise. I learned that from you." The words held both accusation and acknowledgement. Adrian accepted both. "The guard remains under observation." Thomas Reed brought a small envelope from the private instrument. "A reply, sir. The message contained 4 words. Wrong van. Change the platform." Adrian's expression hardened. "They know the search failed, and they assume the platform change still protects them," Arabella said, "which means the train matters more than the signal key." She looked at the railway diagram Mr. Vale unfolded. Platform 5 connected more directly to the old diplomatic siding beyond the terminus. A train leaving early from there could be separated from the public line before station officials understood the route had changed. "This is not an attempt to destroy the train," she said. "It is an attempt to control where it goes." "To what end?" Adrian asked. "We still do not know." A servant announced Lady Cecily Fairborn before anyone answered. Cecily entered the Hart-well drawing room less than an hour later with an older companion beside her. She wore grey instead of green and carried no fan. The absence made her hands look unprotected. Adrian had summoned her after questioning the palace servants who had seen Mr. Fane near the Blue Gate. Arabella had not expected Cecily to come willingly. She had expected tears, denial, or polished outrage. Cecily brought none of them. She stood near the hearth and looked directly at Arabella. "You believe I altered the watch. I believe you had access to it," Arabella said. "I do not yet know what you did with that access." Cecily's mouth tightened. You always speak as though judgment is a blade you are determined not to hold. "I know what happens when someone else holds it carelessly." Adrian remained near the window. He did not conduct the exchange. The restraint was deliberate. Cecily looked at him once, perhaps hoping Rank would offer a simpler question. He gave her none. "Mr. Fane told me the watch contained a hidden compartment," she said at last. "He said an object carrying private railway markings could not remain near His Royal Highness without inspection." "How did he know about the compartment?" Arabella asked. "He said Lord Blackmere's office had received a report from the household storeroom." The scratched lock on Miriam's chest returned to Arabella's mind. Someone had searched it before the chest reached her. "And you believed him?" "I wanted to." Cecily's voice thinned. "He said you had created the first accident to make yourself indispensable. He said the watch would prove it. So you gave it to him for less than a minute." "At the charity review, after I touched the chain, I loosened the clasp and let it fall into my reticule. Mr. Fane was waiting behind the trustee's tent. He returned it before you noticed." Arabella remembered Cecily standing close, the flower wagon moving, the music ending early. 3 seconds had been enough to distract her, because the real exchange happened behind the movement of silk and courtesy. "You knew he opened it?" "Yes, you knew he placed something inside." Cecily looked down. "I saw blue paper." Lady Marian's expression cooled. "And you said nothing while Miss Hart-well was accused." Cecily's eyes filled, but she did not look away. "I thought the note would prove she had known the carriage plan before anyone else. I thought His Royal Highness would finally see what I had been told to see." "What did you expect to gain?" Arabella asked. The question struck harder than moral outrage. Cecily's fingers closed around each other. "My mother has spent 3 seasons telling everyone that I would become the next princess. Invitations, alliances, even my brother's debts have been arranged around that expectation. Mr. Fane said your disgrace would restore what should have been mine." Adrian's face remained unreadable. "Nothing was ever promised to you," he said. Cecily flinched. "No. Then whose future were you protecting?" Arabella asked. Cecily looked toward the floor. "The one everyone had built around me." Arabella understood the prison without excusing the choice. "Will you repeat this before railway directors and a formal royal inquiry?" Cecily's head lifted. Fear moved visibly across her face. "My mother will be ruined. Your mother did not place the note in my watch. She will say I was manipulated. Were you?" "Yes." "Were you also jealous?" Cecily closed her eyes briefly. "Yes." "Then say both. Do not use manipulation to erase choice." Sight held the room. Adrian watched Arabella, not Cecily. She felt the weight of his attention and refused to be softened by it. At last, Cecily nodded. "I will give a full statement." Mr. Vale placed paper on the desk and began recording her account. Halfway through, Cecily stopped him. "There is more." Adrian stepped closer. "Speak." "Mr. Fane said the royal train would not be harmed. He said Lord Blackmere needed His Royal Highness alive and isolated." "For what purpose?" Adrian asked. "To sign an emergency railway concession before the train returned to the main line. He said a private siding had been prepared with witnesses loyal to Blackmere." Arabella looked at the route diagram. The diplomatic siding was not merely a diversion. It was a room without walls, hidden by distance and official confusion. What concession? Control over the southern freight lines during a manufactured national emergency. Mr. Vale went still. That would give Blackmere authority over military supply routes. And enough leverage to break the cabinet, Adrian said. A footman entered before Cecily could continue. He carried a telegram addressed to Mr. Vale. The secretary opened it, read once, then looked toward Arabella. Lord Hart-well has left Downing Street. Her body went cold. For home, no carriage was taken. His private secretary found the cabinet safe open. "What is missing?" Adrian asked. Mr. Vale's answer was quiet. The original royal departure authorization. Arabella looked at Cecily, then at the silver watch on the table. Gideon had the private wire, the platform, and perhaps the signal crew. Now someone had taken the one document capable of making every false order appear lawful. "My father knew more than he admitted," she said. "Or he has gone to prevent us from learning it." Arabella knew where her father had gone before Adrian finished ordering searches of Downing Street, Hart-well House, and the government offices near Whitehall. Lord Alistair had not taken a carriage because he did not intend to leave London. He had not gone to Blackmere House because Gideon would expect the royal guards to watch it. He had gone somewhere connected to Miriam, somewhere he had once used to bury a truth without destroying it. "The sealed writing room," Arabella said. Adrian turned toward her. "At Hart-well House. It belonged to my mother. Father closed it after she died and ordered the connecting passage boarded from the cabinet side." Lady Marian rose at once. There was an old mourning passage behind the portrait gallery. "You knew?" Arabella asked. "Your mother showed it to me once. She said every respectable house required one route by which a woman could leave a conversation no man intended to end." Adrian had already reached for his coat. "We go now." Arabella met his gaze. He did not say that she must remain behind. He did not ask whether she could endure confronting her father. He allowed the decision to be hers. "Yes," she said. The journey across London passed in hard, measured silence. Mr. Vale rode opposite Adrian with Cecily's signed statement secured inside a locked case. Lady Marian sat beside Arabella, one gloved hand resting near hers without touching. The silver watch lay in Arabella's pocket, its stopped hands pressing against her awareness like a question. At Hart-well House, the butler's surprise confirmed Alistair had returned through a side entrance. His lordship ordered that he not be disturbed, the man said. "Where is he?" Arabella asked. "The cabinet room, miss." A faint smell of smoke reached the hall before they crossed it. Adrian looked toward the closed door. "Is there another entrance?" Arabella led them through the portrait gallery. Behind a carved panel beside Miriam's likeness, Lady Marian found a brass catch hidden beneath painted ivy. The panel opened into a narrow passage thick with dust. "The servants believed this sealed," Mr. Vale said. "They were meant to," Arabella replied. She entered first. Adrian followed, leaving Mr. Vale and Marian to secure the gallery end. The passage was barely 3 feet wide. Their shoulders nearly brushed, but Adrian did not reach for her even when the floor dipped beneath an old runner. At the far end, light showed through a warped door. Arabella pushed it open. Her mother's writing room remained almost untouched. A faded shawl lay across one chair. Dried ink darkened the rim of a porcelain well. Beyond an open connecting door, Alistair stood in the cabinet room beside the hearth. The original royal departure authorization was spread across the desk. A second version lay beside it, altered in his unmistakable hand. In his right hand he held Miriam's memorandum. Its lower edge had already begun to brown above the fire. "Father," Alistair turned. Shock hardened into anger. "How did you enter?" "Through the room you sealed after Mother died." His gaze moved to Adrian, then back to Arabella. "This is a government matter. You brought it into her room, because these papers cannot survive." Adrian's voice remained level. "The original royal authorization belongs to the Crown. I am the Prime Minister. That grants responsibility, not ownership." Alistair looked toward the fire. "You do not understand what Blackmere can release if this concession becomes public. The cabinet falls. Foreign lenders withdraw. Parliament fractures before the railway crisis can be contained." "What concession?" Arabella asked. 7 years ago, I approved emergency authority over southern freight lines during a dock strike. Blackmere used the arrangement to place his men in transport offices. Miriam discovered the appointments and warned you. She had fragments. She had enough to build a watch, record private wire, timings, and hide pressure copies. She had enough to create scandal. Arabella felt the old wound open cleanly. You called her unstable because the truth threatened your office. I called her ill because she was destroying herself. No, you called her ill because no one is required to answer a sick woman. Alistair flinched, but the memorandum remained above the flame. If these papers appear at the station, Blackmere will say I conspired with him. The Crown will be dragged into the collapse of the government. Did you conspire with him? Adrian asked. No. Did you knowingly permit his influence over railway appointments? Alistair's silence answered. Arabella looked at the altered order. You changed the departure time to postpone the journey by 9 minutes to create enough confusion for the inspection to be cancelled. You gave Gideon the lawful cover he needed. I was trying to prevent a greater danger by repeating his method. Alistair lowered the memorandum closer to the fire. The paper curled. Arabella took one step forward. If you burn that, you are not protecting the government. You are choosing him again. His face twisted. You think truth is clean because you have never governed with consequences. I have lived under yours. The flame caught the corner of Miriam's memorandum. For one terrible second, Alistair watched it burn. Then something changed in his expression. Not courage. Shame. He pulled the paper back with his gloved hand and pressed the burning edge against the hearthstone until the flame died. A dark crescent remained, but Miriam's writing survived. Alistair stared at it as though he had rescued a voice he had once left to disappear. She wrote that the clocks were the weakness, he said. His voice had lost its authority. She believed Blackmere did not need to forge every order. He needed only one false time accepted by honest men. Arabella's anger did not soften, but grief moved beside it. You read this 7 years ago. Yes, and sealed it away. Yes, then let us be exact. You knew she had reason to suspect the private wire. You allowed society to call her nervous. You dismissed her evidence. You let the same language be used against me. Alistair closed his eyes briefly. Yes. The admission was quiet, but it altered the room more than any defense could have done. Will you say that publicly? Arabella asked. His eyes opened. If I do, I lose office. You have already lost the right to keep it. He looked at Adrian, perhaps expecting royal rescue. Adrian remained beside Arabella without speaking for her. Will she be protected? Alistair asked him. Arabella's hurt sharpened. Even now, he asked another man to guarantee what he had failed to give. Adrian answered carefully. She will be heard. The rest is hers to decide. Alistair looked back at his daughter. What do you require? The original authorization. The altered order, mother's memorandum, every appointment list tied to Blackmere, your testimony at Ravenscourt terminus, your resignation before the day ends. His face went pale. You ask for everything. No, I ask for what remains after you spent 7 years protecting everything else. Silence stretched between them. Then Alistair placed Miriam's memorandum on the desk instead of the fire. He removed the Prime Minister's seal from his chain and set it beside the 2 departure orders. There are appointment records in the lower drawer, he said. Blackmere's recommendations are marked in my private cipher. Arabella opened the drawer. Inside lay lists of signalmen, clerks, transport officers, and suppliers. The pattern reached farther than she had imagined. Adrian did not take the papers. He waited until Arabella placed them into the leather portfolio Mr. Vale carried in from the passage. We must cancel the royal journey, Adrian said. Arabella looked at the station codes. No, Blackmere controls part of the signalling chain. If we cancel, he destroys the wire, replaces the false clock, and calls every alteration routine. If we proceed, he may still divert the train. Then we make the train the witness. Adrian studied her. State the plan. No press on the operational platform. Railway directors present. Witnesses kept separate until called. The public wire tested in front of them. The station timekeeper box opened only when I ask. You remain where I can see you, and I do not speak until you are finished. She looked at him, surprised. You remember, I intend to keep this promise in meaning. Alistair sank into the chair behind the desk. Mr. Vale checked his watch and went still. The false departure is in 12 minutes. Adrian reached for the portfolio, then stopped. May I carry it? Arabella considered, then handed it to him until we reach the platform. Until then. The silver watch clicked inside her pocket. 1 beat, then another. Arabella drew it out. The mechanism released 9 measured ticks and stopped. For the first time, she did not hear a warning. She heard a countdown she had chosen to face. Ravenscourt terminus had never been designed for doubt. Its iron roof, polished clocks, signal lamps, and broad platforms existed to make movement appear inevitable. Yet, when Arabella stepped onto platform 5, with the leather portfolio in Adrian's hand and her mother's silver watch closed in her own, every visible certainty seemed false. The station clock above the booking hall showed 11 minutes before the altered departure. The engine waited beneath a low cloud of steam. Railway directors stood near the platform master's office. 2 senior household officers had been admitted. No reporters were present. The witnesses remained in separate rooms as Arabella had required. Lord Gideon Blackmere stood beside the royal carriage with Mr. Lionel Fane several feet behind him. He held the altered departure order as though possession had already made it truth. Your Royal Highness, Gideon said, bowing. The line is prepared. The revised time avoids congestion beyond the southern junction. Adrian said nothing. He had promised. Arabella walked forward until she stood beside the public instrument table. Mr. Vale placed the portfolio before her. She opened it and laid out the original authorization. The altered copy, Miriam's scorched memorandum, the pressure copy instruction from the workshop, and the notices produced by the sealed decoy. Gideon watched without alarm. Miss Hart-well appears to have brought a private archive. A public accounting, Arabella said. The difference is witnesses. She lifted the original authorization. This order states the royal train will depart at 1:40. Then she displayed the altered copy. This version advances the time by 9 minutes and bears my father's handwriting. Gideon inclined his head. Then the Prime Minister authorized the change. He altered the time under pressure from you. A claim made by a man facing resignation. Not yet a claim. He has not spoken. Arabella turned toward the closed waiting room, where Alistair had been placed apart from the others. Mr. Vale, ask the station staff to test the public wire. Thomas Reed stepped to the instrument. He transmitted the agreed confirmation toward Ashbridge Junction. The key clicked. No answering bell sounded. The telegraph superintendent, Mr. Calder, moved at once toward the private switch. The public line is experiencing interruption. Do not touch the private wire, Arabella said. Calder looked offended. Miss Hart-well, this equipment cannot be governed by intuition. Then explain why the public line failed at the exact moment it was asked to confirm a royal departure. Gideon smiled faintly. Machines fail. That is not conspiracy. No, but men often decide which failure becomes useful. One railway director examined the instrument. Calder blocked his hand. The movement was small, but every director saw it. Arabella placed the pressure copy sheet on the table. This instruction orders the royal train advanced 9 minutes, the engine crew replaced, and confirmation accepted through a private wire. It names the unused diplomatic siding. Gideon did not look at the paper. He looked at Adrian. Your Royal Highness, the sheet bears no complete signature. It was recovered by Miss Hart-well from a furnace room, after she had already transmitted an unauthorized decoy through a royal channel. The directors shifted. Arabella felt the argument strike where he intended. Gideon continued. Her father wrote the altered order. Her own message caused a platform change. Clerks dependent upon royal favor now repeat her theory. And His Royal Highness has shown unusual confidence in her judgment. The last sentence was more dangerous than accusation. It turned Adrian's protection into bias. Arabella looked toward him. He remained where she had asked, several feet behind her, silent. Gideon noticed. You see, he said softly, even now the crown stands behind one family's attempt to save itself. The waiting room door opened. Alistair entered under escort. His face was grey with exhaustion. Gideon turned toward him. Prime Minister, did you alter the departure order? Alistair looked at Arabella, then at the station clock. Yes. A murmur moved through the directors. Did Lord Blackmere hold your hand? Gideon asked. No. Did he write the correction? No. Then the lawful authority is yours. For one terrible moment, the trap tightened. The altered order was genuine enough to command obedience because Alistair had made it so. Arabella looked toward Thomas. Mr. Reed, identify the man who requested the private wire be cleared. Thomas stared at Gideon, then at Calder. Fear returned to his face. I cannot be certain. Gideon's expression softened with satisfaction. A cautious answer. Arabella felt the attention of the platform shift. The paper evidence looked incomplete. The witness had weakened. Cecily had not yet appeared. Outside the iron roof, a bell rang from another line. Time was moving. Gideon lifted the altered authorization. The order stands, Platform 5. Departure at 1:31. The station clock showed 1:28. 3 minutes. Arabella looked at the clock, then at the engine chronometer visible through the cab window. Its brass face showed 1:19. She looked again. The station clock was 9 minutes fast. Not the order, not only the wire, the clock itself. Her mother's memorandum seemed to speak from the table. He needs only one false time accepted by honest men. Stop, Arabella said. Gideon glanced at her. On what ground? The platform clock is wrong. The station master frowned. That clock was checked this morning. Against what? The timekeeper box. Open it. Calder stepped forward. "The box is sealed." "With whose seal?" Arabella asked. No one answered. "Open it." Gideon's patience thinned. "You cannot delay a royal departure because two clocks disagree. That disagreement is the entire conspiracy." She pointed toward the engine. "The driver's chronometer shows 1:19. The platform clock shows 1:28. Honest men obey the wrong clock and believe they are obeying the order." A director crossed to the cab and confirmed the chronometer. Another compared his pocket watch. 1:20. The station clock remained 9 minutes ahead. The platform master went pale. Arabella looked at Adrian. He did not speak. He only nodded once toward the sealed timekeeper box. The station master broke the outer wax. Inside lay the regulator key, a replacement brass wheel, and a smear of yellow sealing wax. Beneath them rested a folded strip of paper bearing the Blackmere Workshop emblem. Gideon's composure cracked. "Planted." "By whom?" Arabella asked. "Your father controls government seals. You controlled the decoy. Your servants had access to the station. Then why did the clock change before my father left Downing Street?" He had no answer ready. Thomas Reed stared at the yellow wax. His fear shifted into recognition. "That is the same wax," he said. "The man who ordered the wire cleared had it on his glove." Calder moved toward the private instrument. A railway officer blocked him. The waiting room door opened again. Lady Cecily entered with Lady Marian beside her and Mr. Vale carrying her signed statement. Cecily's face was pale, but her voice did not fail. Mr. Fane opened Miss Hart-well's watch. "I gave it to him because he promised to prove she had staged the danger. I saw him place blue paper inside." Fane took one step backward. A guard closed the distance. Gideon turned on Cecily. "You are protecting yourself from jealousy." "I am admitting it," she said. "That is why you cannot use it to silence me." Alistair moved forward. He placed the Prime Minister's seal on the instrument table. "Lady Miriam warned me 7 years ago that Blackmere's appointments controlled the clocks, the wires, and the men permitted to correct them. I dismissed her evidence. I allowed her to be called unstable. I repeated the same cowardice when my daughter was accused." The words landed more heavily than any defense. Gideon looked toward the departure flag. The platform master had left it beside the signal post. Gideon seized it and raised his arm. At the far switch, a man in signalman's uniform pulled the lever toward the diplomatic siding. Arabella saw the missing blue band on his sleeve. The true royal signalman wore one for special movements. "That man is false!" she shouted. The engine gave a warning hiss. Arabella caught the red station alarm line beside the public table and pulled with both hands. The bell crashed through the terminus. The driver looked not at the platform clock, but at his true chronometer. He released steam and held the engine still. Railway officers reached the switch. The false signalman lifted his hands without resistance. Gideon lowered the flag. Silence moved across platform 5. This time it did not belong to uncertainty. It belonged to recognition. Adrian stepped forward only after Arabella turned toward him. "Lord Blackmere," he said, "you and Mr. Fane will remain under guard pending formal charges. Mr. Calder will be removed from the private wire. The altered order is suspended." Guards closed around Gideon, Fane, and the superintendent. Gideon looked at Arabella as he was led away. "You believe this ends because a clock was corrected?" "No," she said. "It ends because people stopped confusing authority with truth." Alistair removed his remaining office chain and placed it beside the seal. "I will resign before the day ends." Arabella did not comfort him. Consequence was not cruelty. Thomas Reed remained beside the instrument, shaken but upright. Cecily lowered her gaze. "I will testify in full." "Without excuses," Arabella said. "Without excuses." The railway directors turned toward Arabella one by one. Some bowed. Others simply stepped aside, making space where they had once made judgment. Adrian came to stand beside her, not before her. "Miss Hart-well," he said, his voice carrying across the platform. "The Crown does not pardon you because you committed no offense. You protected this journey, this station, and every honest person whose obedience was used against them." No applause followed. The moment was too grave for performance. What came instead was better. The room believed him because Arabella had already made belief unavoidable. Adrian lowered his voice. "May I accompany you when you leave?" Arabella looked at the corrected station clock, the silent engine, and her mother's watch in her hand. Not today. Pain touched his expression, but he accepted it. "Then when you know whether you want the woman or only the person who saved the crown." He inclined his head. "I will not come before I know." Arabella closed the silver watch and walked from platform 5 while the engine remained exactly where the true hour required. 3 weeks after platform 5, Arabella opened the door of a narrow office above a stationer's shop and watched 6 women enter without asking permission from any man. The brass plate beside the stairs read Hart-well Correspondence and Contract Office. No royal crest appeared beneath it. No ministerial seal legitimized the name. Lady Beatrice Montclair had provided introductions. Lady Marian Ashcroft had persuaded 3 widows and 2 gentlewomen to bring their railway leases, freight agreements, and tenancy notices for review. Thomas Reed had recommended a retired clerk who could read station schedules without mistaking authority for accuracy. The work was modest, respectable, and already more necessary than society had expected. Arabella stood behind the central desk with her mother's silver watch beside the inkstand. It still rested at 12:17. She had not repaired it. Some things deserved to be understood before they were made useful again. Lord Alistair Hart-well had resigned before sunset on the day of the failed departure. His confession had been read before Parliament and entered into the royal inquiry. Gideon Blackmere, Lionel Fane, and Mr. Calder awaited trial. Lady Cecily Fairborn had withdrawn from the season after giving a complete statement that spared neither Arabella nor herself. Thomas had been promoted. The Royal Railway Office had replaced 3 supervisors and corrected every station's clock connected to Blackmere's private appointments. London had also corrected its opinion of Arabella with astonishing speed. The same newspapers that had called her idle now praised her vigilance as though they had discovered it. Arabella trusted neither judgment. A clerk announced Lady Beatrice from the outer room. The dowager entered, carrying no embroidery and wearing the expression of someone prepared to criticize the furniture. "The chairs are too hard," she said. "Good," Arabella replied. "Clients should not be made comfortable enough to accept bad contracts." "Your mother would have approved." Lady Beatrice looked toward the watch. "He has arrived." Arabella's hand paused above a letter. "With whom?" One equerry. "No procession, and no arrangement communicated through your father." "That is an improvement. He has made several." Lady Beatrice turned toward the door. "Shall I remain?" "In the adjoining room." "Near enough to hear impropriety?" "Near enough to invent it if conversation becomes dull." The dowager's mouth curved. She left the door partly open. Adrian entered a moment later in a dark morning coat without ceremonial braid. He stopped just inside the office and bowed. Miss Hart-well, Your Royal Highness. His gaze moved over the shelves of ledgers, the waiting correspondence, and the brass plate visible through the open door. You built this quickly. The need existed before the room did, Mr. Vale tells me 2 railway directors now refuse to approve revised freight contracts until your office has examined the timing clauses. Mr. Vale should learn discretion. I have told him. He believes accuracy is the higher duty. That sounds inconvenient. It frequently is. Silence settled between them, not awkward but measured. Adrian did not move closer without invitation. He had come exactly as he said he would, only after he knew why. Arabella closed the ledger. You asked when you might return. I did. Have you found an answer? Yes. He removed one glove but kept his hands at his sides. At first, I wanted the woman who saved the crown because she had seen what men appointed to see had missed. That was gratitude. Then I wanted the woman who defended Thomas Reed after his fear became inconvenient, who refused to condemn Lady Cecily by the same method used against her, and who left my protection when it required her ignorance. Arabella held his gaze. That is admiration. Yes, not love. No, he accepted the distinction without flinching. Love came later, when I understood that your courage did not depend upon needing me. You chose truth when royal authority failed you. You chose restraint when vengeance would have been easy. You built work that did not require my name. I love you because you remain yourself, whether I stand beside you or not. The words were not polished enough to be a speech. That made them more dangerous to her defenses. You used me, she said. Yes, you believed duty gave you the right. Yes, and now I believe duty may explain haste. It does not excuse taking another person's choice. He looked toward the signed conditions framed beside her desk, not displayed as triumph, but kept as record. I am sorry for deciding what danger you should face without allowing you to judge it. I am sorry for calling control protection. I am sorry that I understood the promise only after I had broken its meaning. Arabella let the apology remain where he had placed it. She did not hurry to comfort him. What are you asking? Permission to court you for 6 months. Why 6? Because forever would sound presumptuous, and 3 months would insult your caution. Lady Beatrice advised you, relentlessly. Arabella almost smiled. There would be conditions. I expected them. My office remains independent. Yes, no public announcement without my agreement. Yes, silence is never treated as consent. Agreed. My professional income remains mine under any future marriage settlement. Mr. Vale has prepared 3 versions. None will be presented unless you request them. You prepared settlements before knowing whether I would receive you. I prepared choices, not a conclusion. The distinction reached her more deeply than any romantic phrase could have done. Arabella looked at the silver watch. 6 months. Adrian's breath changed. 6 months, 2 calls each week when duty permits, letters when it does not. Lady Beatrice or Lady Marian present. Agreed. No diamonds. I had considered railway maps. That is not better. Then books. Submit a list. His smile came slowly, changing the severity of his face without erasing it. Arabella extended her hand. He did not take it until she turned her palm upward. 6 months later, Adrian stood in the same office while rain traced the windows, and a royal household memorandum lay unopened between them. Their courtship had survived Parliament, gossip, 2 railway disputes, 1 dinner at which Lady Beatrice insulted a duke, and several occasions when Adrian had asked rather than assumed. He had sent records without attaching obligation. He had accepted 3 refusals without persuasion. He had learned that restraint was not passivity when chosen for someone else's freedom. The household wishes to place the crown crest beneath your office plate, he said. They believe it would reassure clients. Arabella opened the memorandum. It would also suggest the office belongs to royal patronage. That was my objection. You objected before asking me. I objected to the presumption. I did not answer for you. She looked at him, and if I wanted the crest, I would arrange it. I do not. Then it will not appear. No disappointment, no argument, no offer to make the decision easier by making it for her. Only acceptance. Arabella folded the memorandum. You have changed slowly, reliably. The word mattered more. Adrian stepped closer but stopped beyond reach. Does that alter your answer? Yes. He did not speak. Arabella placed her hand in his. You may ask. His fingers closed gently around hers. Will you marry me? Yes. Their wedding took place 6 weeks later in a small chapel near the river with no state procession and no public balcony. Alistair attended from the rear pew without office, seal, or expectation of forgiveness. He had begun sending Arabella copies of Miriam's papers as the inquiry uncovered them. Arabella answered some letters and ignored others. Access was not restoration. Cecily lived with a widowed cousin and contributed anonymously to a fund for dismissed clerks. Arabella accepted the money because good done quietly still counted, though it did not erase harm. After the ceremony, the wedding breakfast was held in an upper room overlooking the roofs of Ravenscourt terminus. Before the guests entered, Arabella stood beside the window with Adrian and opened Miriam's silver watch. A watchmaker had repaired the mechanism without touching the hidden plate. Arabella turned the winding crown. The second hand moved. It passed 12:17. It did not stop. Together they compared it with the corrected station clock across the roofs, the 2 hands aligned. Arabella listened to the steady ticking and felt no warning in it. No demand, no borrowed future. She closed the case and placed the watch on the table instead of fastening it to her dress. Adrian looked at the clock, then at her. What hour would you choose? He asked. Arabella heard their guests approaching beyond the door. She thought of the woman others had called idle, the mother they had called unstable, and the minutes powerful men had stolen because they expected honest people to obey. Then she smiled. One no one has chosen for me. Adrian offered his arm. He did not move until she took it. Together they turned toward the opening door, while the silver watch continued ticking behind them, keeping time that finally belonged to her.